Hey guys, I'm Graham with MRC Multimedia. I got a GH5s the other week, and I'm going to show you guys a low-light comparison between the GH5 and this guy. Now, why am I going to do this? There's already plenty out there, right? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, I've been a little disappointed with the way that some of it's been presented, and I'm also a little disappointed that nobody's had an in-depth conversation about what you could do about the noise in the GH5 from the get-go, because I've had to live with the GH5 for about a year now and figure out how to work in low light conditions with it and a handful of wide aperture lenses and of course some denoising software. So is the GH5s really worth it to you? You'll have to watch to find out. But let's get to it. Enough of me talking. No one would call the GH5 a great low-light camera. At 1600 ISO, it starts showing some noticeable grain, and it only gets worse from there. But that doesn't mean the GH5 has been replaced entirely by the GH5s. Anyone like me that's been using the GH5 since the day of release knows the workarounds for avoiding that hideous grain. Find some fast glass and shoot at 30 FPS or less. The fastest lens I personally own is a Sigma 30mm f1.4, but there are far faster choices, like a Voigtlander or SLR Magic f.95 in a variety of lengths. Fast lenses can level the field a bit, but aren't going to be nipping at what the GH5s is capable of, especially since all of those exact same lenses could be on a GH5s. While the GH5 Low-Light Workarounds are effective, they come with drawbacks and don't allow as much flexibility as a GH5s. First of all, there aren't too many lenses in the f1.0 range for Micro Four Thirds. Secondly, most aren't very cheap, and thirdly, not many can keep sharp edges or generous depths of field wide open. There's also the matter of maybe wanting to shoot something at 60 frames per second or more in low light conditions, and those are just really not options with the GH5. Even relatively fast lenses like the 12 to 35mm f2.8 might not be fast enough for a GH5 in low light, but are no struggle for a GH5s. Until you reach about 12,800 ISO, there's no real noise to speak of, and even then it could be removed in post. That threshold for successful noise removal on the GH5 is about 3200 ISO. (25,600 ISO on the GH5s is far from usable without major noise reduction. And 51,200 is really just to say you can see in the dark, because you can. It would only be attractive to news gatherers, though, being far from what you could call cinematic. Maybe it would be a choice for surveillance. Something I haven't seen any other test do yet is give an advantage to the GH5 in low light. Now, no one's going to be rigid or scientific in the field, they're going to work with what their limitations are, so the GH5 is shooting 4K at 30 on a fast 1.4 Sigma, while the GH5s shoots 60 FPS with the 12 to 35 f2.8. It's worth considering that you could spend the $700 you saved not buying a GH5s on an SLR Magic f.95 and some good denoising software and still have enough left to buy some external LED lights. The GH5 at 30 FPS with the Sigma is able to match the GH5s at 60 frames per second at about 6400 ISO in terms of exposure. ISO topped out on both cameras looks similar, with the 12,800 looking every bit as nasty as the 51,200 on the GH5s. Noise on the GH5 starts at 1600 and on the GH5s at about 12,800. With good denoising software, either camera's lighter noise could be cleaned up, and I wanted to show an example. For my example, I'm using a $100 piece of software called Neat Video that's a Premiere Pro plugin. It's easy to use, but rendering is cumbersome, so it's not a solution for people who are already struggling to edit 4K footage. Noise reduction software like this is capable of totally eliminating noise in GH5 clips at ISO 1600 and GH5s clips at 12,800. Neat Video can try to salvage even maxed out ISO settings on either camera and can pull them a few steps back from being a hideous pile of crap. One more low-light consideration for potential GH5 buyers is that slower lenses will just not be usable at night, in some cases no matter what. The 100 to 400mm Leica only has an aperture of 4.0 at 100mm and 6.3 when zoomed all the way in. Using a lens like this on a GH5 at night is inconceivable, but a GH5s can take a crack at it. With a lens like this, you're also going to notice one of the GH5s's shortcomings, and that is a lack of in-body image stabilization that makes hand-holding a 100+mm lens downright difficult. Well, hopefully this unconventional low-light comparison has given you some food for thought and shed some light on these two cameras. Oh, I'm giving myself a high five for that one. Joking aside, when you're spending thousands on either of these cameras, there are plenty of considerations you should mull over, like the different crop factors and fields of view each camera creates, or what they look like on gimbals. But that will have to wait for another episode. Thanks for watching. I'm Graham with MRC Multimedia. Please feel free to ask questions or comment if you have any experience you'd like to share. I'd also appreciate a like or share if you think this video helped. Thanks everybody for watching, and please stay tuned.